It is time for my November wrap-up. And like always, let's cheers and let's talk about some books. I realize you're going to wonder what my t-shirt says. So it says my favorite color is Christmas lights, just in case you're curious. So November was kind of a mediocre month. I had a bunch that I really loved, but then the rest were kind of just okay to read. Didn't really stand out much. Okay, so the very first book that I finished that kind of carried over from October was Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. So Erin A. Craig does a lot of just retellings or inspired by type of like mildly horror retelling. So this one was based off of Rumpelstiltskin. This is one that I wish I hadn't put off for so long because I actually really enjoyed this one. I didn't like her House of Salt and Sorrows book, so that kind of turned me off to like checking out anything else by her because I didn't really enjoy the ending and the way that one wrapped up. I really enjoyed this one. This is more like unsettlingly creepy than horror. It does get kind of violent in parts, not any more than what like Grimdark gets a little more intense than this one does, but it's more of a unsettling, creepy horror than like actually super scary, I think, especially as a person who doesn't like scary movies. So this one was a 4-star for me. You can check out my full written review on Goodreads with all of these. The second one I read this month, I'm part of a book club on a Discord that's a very tiny group, mostly because any more than 3 people, and I think I would have too much anxiety to talk in a discussion format, is better for introverted me. But we read The Tempest by Shakespeare. That was our pick for November. And I've read Shakespeare before. I went to college for theater, so Shakespeare was a constant thing I was reading. I did read The Tempest one of the years that I was in college, but I could not recollect a lot about it. So this was technically a reread of The Tempest because I did a scene design project for it. I had to design the shipwreck part at the beginning. And this one, I gave this one a 3-star. I don't think it's my favorite of Shakespeare. I'm not really sure why. It just, like, I think A Midsummer Night's Dream is a little more magical than this one felt to me, even though Prospero is basically a wizard on this island. But I think I like A Midsummer Night's Dream more than this. When we were talking in our group, this is actually the rumored last play written by Shakespeare. So it's like the end monologue is talked about as being like him also leaving a message to the audience for himself as a playwright. So that was interesting. We had a good, interesting conversation. And we've already selected our Christmas books. That's been added to my TBR, and I'll talk about that at the end of next month. The next book I finished was a couple months of working on it. Locked In by Victoria Arlen. And if you're unfamiliar with her story like I was before someone recommended me check out her story, from a young age, she got two very rare diseases that coincided at the same time that caused her to basically go into a vegetative state. It caused her to be paralyzed, and this is her basically autobiography of her childhood, and then later on once she hits college, relearning to walk again, and also ultimately ending up on Dancing with the Stars after she does learn to walk again. And currently she's even still a reporter on ESPN. Also, she's Christian, so her story was basically even to spread the gospel even more with her story and her life. For me, this was kind of like a very personal book, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. I would have given it 5, but I think the writing style was a little different just because she wrote it herself. But it's definitely, as a person who's been through some health things in my life, this definitely stuck out to me as more of a personal read, and I would recommend this book for anyone interested in that kind of journey. And maybe in a future video I have a few different Christian-based reads that helped me throughout my life, reading those at different times, so that can be an eventual recommendation video. And the next book was a free Chirp audiobook again. I just needed something to listen to, so I started listening to it. It's a sci-fi called Foreign Land. It's by J.S. Sherwood, which this is an indie author as well. I gave this book a 3-star. It started out really strong for sci-fi elements and piecing together what happened on Earth to get to years later of why we're on this, discovering this planet. And there's 2 different perspectives. You get one from the ship, and you get one from the people who crash landed on this planet. So there was a very unique sci-fi alien aspect to this, and also dealing with time travel and how these spaceships actually work, almost similar to in Star Trek, where you have the warp speed. There's a similar aspect with how some of their technology works. The few issues I had were, we meet all these characters, but then, so it's very action-packed, and once things start happening on this planet, you're not built up enough with some of the characters to what inevitably happens to them. So in that sense, like, there were characters that I wish we learned more about, or because this is a series, I wish it was drawn out a little bit more with some of these characters. So the whole backstory to why they've been searching for someplace other than Earth, at first started out, you get like little snippets that some of the politics around it kind of mirror what's happening in current events. And then there's one line that was said that blatantly made it clear how this author feels about current events, or specifically placed on the character about current events. Immediately took me out, because I liked the more nuanced, like, okay, I can kind of connect this to real life politics, but it's not so on the nose that you're choosing sides, or basically people are at odds with each other on Earth. So there was so much nuance that you didn't really know whether they were left-leaning or right-leaning. It just happened that people are clashing, and it became evident later about the politics, and so that took me out. If you're into books that give more of a conversation about that, that's cool, but I personally don't want real life to bleed into my books. And then the ending also confused me. There's, I think, just a little bit too much going on with the ending, and it was kind of almost that rushed ending feel. But I did almost think I would have preferred to read it with my eyes rather than listening. Not that the audio narrator was horrible. I loved there's songs in this that he sang actually really well, and I liked his singing voice. But as far as like the vocal range of changing character voices, I think he needs a little bit more practice there. Overall, like, it was a 3-star. It was just okay. Like, I found it interesting enough to read all the way to the end. I didn't DNF at the point that I kind of had to roll my eyes at the dialogue characters were saying. It was interesting enough that maybe I'll check out the second one. That's an indie sci-fi that you guys can pick up if you want to figure it out, because it did really have interesting sci-fi aspects to it that kept me interested. And then I did a palette cleanse and read a manga, Cat Massage Therapy. Very cute. Very, very cute. Basically, these cats, well, this cat is the manager and runs its own massage therapy. It's basically this adult cat, and then there's kitten trainees as massage therapists. So basically this clinic is helping all the humans with their stress and anxiety and tense muscles, and it's just super cute because this cat befriends a human that also wants to help this cat's business succeed because he was their first human customer. So it's just very cute, very fluffy. So that was a 5-star because it was cute and I love cats. Turn your brain off and just look at the cute cat type of read. Okay, and these next two I have reviews up for already. So Nevermore, I finished, gave a 5-star. Highly recommended, middle grade. Like I said, you can go check out my review. My pitch is, if you really enjoyed Harry Potter and would love to read Harry Potter and learn about the magical world again for the first time, you should pick up this series. I haven't continued on yet, but the very first book, I think it can be a complete book in itself, and it kind of is the same as the first Harry Potter book, where when you get to the end, you get the idea that there can be more, but there doesn't need to be if you really don't want to read more. All the holidays happen in this book, so it would be good to read around Halloween or Christmas, because they have Christmas happen in this book. Unique holiday aspects in this world, and so highly recommend. The next book I have a review up for. I finally finished Isles of the Emberdark. This one took me a little bit. I think if I had started it physically versus on my e-reader, I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. I gave this one a 3. I liked this one better than Sunlit Man, and I am unsure about the sci-fi future of the Cosmere. And the next book I finished was a reread. It was mostly audiobook. I tabbed all the mentions that happen or get talked about in Sunrise on the Reaping. My goal was to get these all reread this year after Sunrise on the Reaping came out. So I'm already into Mockingjay, the reread on that. Still 5-star favorite. And even more so now that we have Hey Mitch's story as well. And I also, for this, I haven't watched the movies in a very long time as well. So when I knew things were gonna happen, but then it's kind of like when you get spoiled, but you don't know how things actually happened. I didn't have in my memory exactly how things went down, so it was still kind of a fresh read in that aspect, that I didn't know the play-by-play of how certain things happened. And my final book was my library challenge pick. I'll be announcing my library 2026 challenge soon. Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. I have to put an image up because I already returned it, if that tells you anything. So the challenge was that it involved food. I also picked this because the cover is beautiful and it's a painting, and I'm an artist, so I'm naturally drawn to pretty paintings on your book covers. So this is supposed to be like a historical fiction based on the unsolved mystery in 1951 of a mass poisoning in a French village. It had very little to do with the actual mystery of this poisoning, but it centered more around the literary fiction tag of the genre, because it revolved around a lady named Elodie, and she is a very dysfunctional, obsessive, degenerate human being. And at first I thought we were getting one of those morally gray POVs, and so I pushed through, even though I probably should have DNF'd it. I thought we were gonna get some amazing ending. I did not. I was confused because it's one of those endings of you're kind of disoriented and don't really know. Like, you almost feel poisoned, I guess, and if that was the point, she did that, but also none of it fully had to do with this mystery. I don't know that I would even recommend it. This book has every form of immorality and depravity. So, again, if it had been an introspective look upon that and the morally gray characteristics of this lady, then it would have been fine. And I thought that's kind of what it was going to be, and then it just wasn't. So, I apparently need to hone my skills of trusting my gut for DNFing a book. But I supported my library, and I got my challenge done. I guess I'm ending this video on the bad news. I did decide to DNF Jade War for the major reason of sexual content, but also because that content went into an LGBTQ relationship. For my personal reading taste, I am fine with that, with a LGBTQ character, as long as they aren't purposely like some token insert, or in this case where it goes a little bit too much into the PDA part of relationships. All the relationships with the sexual content, it was just a little too close to that line for me. So I'll be getting rid of my pretty broken binding editions. It is very disappointing to me because I enjoyed the first book so much, and I felt like between the first and second book there was like a huge shift. Yeah, so that was probably my most disappointing read, even compared to the one I just talked about. But yeah, I still own Jade City on as ebook, so I'll have my favorite of the series and only completed book of the series, and then I just get to make up what happens on my own. That's all the books I got to for the month of November. I am currently reading Mockingjay as my reread for the audiobook, the new Witcher prequel, and The Kill Clause, which is a short story on my ebook. So if you notice, I'm a chaotic reader just because I have all forms of book, and that's how I get through multiple books at once. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, and as long as you hit that subscribe button, I'll see you in the next video. But if I lay down and I play down